Among the many tragic things in life, one is achieving something great and not being able to live to tell about it. Such as in the case of Frank Hayes, a man who suddenly died just before he could taste the unexpected victory he likely hoped for. Here's a story of a man who took a crowd by surprise for two reasons. One, because he was kind of a rookie at the sport that he was in, and two, because he was, well, dead when he won his first sporting event. Yes, that's right. Let me explain. Leading up to this fateful race, Frank Hayes was a horse trainer, stableman, and a stand-in jockey who was said to have been well-liked and was a favorite in the saddling room and stable and took great pride in his calling. Hayes had been employed for 4 years by James K.L. Frayling to train steeplechase horses. The horse he competed with was named Sweet Kiss, who was owned by Miss A.M. Frayling and was considered a 20-to-1 shot against a fan favorite horse. Hayes had only been riding horses in steeplechases and had never won a race before, and apparently no one expected him to. After all, this was only his second cross-country race. On June 4th, 1923, at New York's Belmont Park, Hayes and Sweet Kiss geared up for the race that would ultimately make history in an unusual way. It was a 2-mile contest that included fences as hurdling obstacles. The race took off, and reportedly sometime after taking the lead, Hayes suddenly slumped over his horse. Surprisingly, no one had seemed to notice that something had gone wrong. It wasn't until Sweet Kiss crossed the finish line in first place when Miss A.M. Frayling came rushing over to congratulate Hayes and her horse on their victory that Hayes' body fell off the horse, making it very clear that something was terribly wrong. It turns out that Hayes suffered a heart attack during the race and died in the saddle, but remained on the horse. Mind you, this horse was likely going full speed and clearing fences while Frank's lifeless body somehow stayed clung to it. Track doctor John Voorhees was said to have examined Hayes and declared him dead on the spot. Voorhees determined that Hayes suffered a fatal heart attack at some point during the competition. A news outlet stated, "Sweet Kiss cantered 100 yards further and stopped. The jockey crumpled in the saddle, slipped slowly over his mount's side, fell face downward, and lay still." Hayes and Sweet Kiss were rightfully awarded the winning title because Hayes was still mounted on the horse when they crossed the finish line, which technically qualified him as the winner despite the very unexpected and rare circumstances. Theories as to what may have caused the heart attack surrounded the intense training and severe weight loss Frank underwent to meet the weight requirements to compete with Sweet Kiss, which was limited to just 130 pounds. Hayes reportedly had to lose between 10 to 15 pounds in 3 days when he decided to race. It's likely that he lost a dramatic amount of weight by sweating off water weight, which would have led to an imbalance in electrolytes, straining the heart. The Buffalo Morning Express wrote that he had to drop 10 pounds within 24 hours. Stating, "This morning he spent several hours on the road, jogging off surplus weight. He strove and sweated and denied himself water, and when he climbed into the saddle at post time, he was weak and tired." Some even say that perhaps the heart attack was brought on by Frank's sheer excitement to be among the pack racing that day. 3 days after his bizarre victory, Frank Hayes was buried in the riding silks he wore on the day of the race, and it's believed that Sweet Kiss never raced again after that competition and was given the nickname Sweet Kiss of Death. An obituary for Hayes reported, "Hayes' ambition in life was to win a race. He tried once in Canada and failed, and on his second attempt he won, but the strain on his heart was too much, and he died after crossing the finish line on a horse trained by him and owned by a lifelong friend. J.F. Frayling, the boy's employer and lifelong friend, and Miss A.M. Frayling, the owner of Sweet Kiss, the horse he rode to his death, attended the funeral." Throughout sports history, there have been other instances where athletes suddenly lose their lives in the midst of a competition, either due to fatal injuries or untimely natural causes. And in the case of Frank Hayes, according to some publications, he remains the only person in recorded history to have rightfully won a race while dead. Bizarre, right? I mean, I guess it's kind of bittersweet. Definitely unfortunate though.